We are live. Oh, guys, thank you for joining us on the social work race. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Um, it's been an interesting week. It's Monday. It's Monday. This is Monday's sometimes equivalent to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But I want to thank you all for joining us on the Social Work Race podcast. It's going to be a video cast as well now. Today we're talking about a couple of very interesting topics, and I have someone here that I've met a few times before in my work, or we've met each other. Elizabeth, I want to thank you for joining us. Guys, as you're listening, please share, please subscribe, and share and subscribe again, because this platform is about people learning how to social work effectively. And again, I'm going to do a podcast on why I set this up. It's actually quite, it's a lot deeper than just entertainment. It's a little bit more than education. But I really want you all to just find this a place where you as frontline workers, social workers, everybody out there who's interested in the social care field can come and feel like they can learn something. And at the end of every session, the aim is that we can hear this, Elizabeth, because it's on you now.
I'm listening.
At the end of every session, I want you to be able to walk away with being more enabled in what you do. That's the pressure that's on you. But I want to thank you, Elizabeth. We met in fact, I'll let you introduce yourself and I'll tell you where we met after that. Actually, Elizabeth, please introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth. I am a social worker. It's probably, a bit of my identity. I see myself as a social worker. It matters. The ethos matters. The principles matters. Been doing it for a while, I guess. It's the only thing I've ever really done. Went to university at 21 to study social work because that's the normal thing to do. I was always passionate about advocating and protecting and promoting children's well-being because they don't have a voice. I didn't have a voice, so I wanted to give children their voice as well. So that's me.
What do you mean you didn't have a voice?
So I'm interested in protecting children because I wasn't necessarily protected. And so I want I want someone who's going to be able to advocate. I want to be the person advocating. I want to be the person protecting that child, safeguarding that child, promoting their well-being because they deserve it. And that wasn't done to me, and that, I guess, fueled something in me to do it for other children. That's what I mean by I didn't have a voice. Things happen that shouldn't have happened, and if I can prevent that from happening to another child, or at least help that child kind of recover from their life experience, their lived experience, then I'm all for that.
Excellent. And you know what? I think talking to you just the few minutes before we came live, I recognized that there is a lot more passion in you than I knew that there was when I started working with you or working alongside you. So I'm looking forward to it. And I want to thank you in advance for being very open about yourself, because we're going to talk about a couple of interesting things. One of them first being dyslexia. Oh, actually, no. This is what I wanted to do because before we go into it, actually, and it's actually about your personal challenges with dyslexia. That's what we're looking at today. Can a social worker have dyslexia and still practice? There might be some stigma around that. I want you to kind of let us know how it works. But before we go into that, Elizabeth, how is your day going, and what are your plans after this podcast?
So my day is happening. It's a Monday. It's a social work day. I think coming off the back of all those bank holidays that we really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's right.
Now we're just trying to catch up because we enjoyed ourselves. Cool. And then we came back and we have work to do, and we've missed those days. So
Yeah.
So I've been catching up with that. My day is definitely not over after this. I need to get some work done. So I'll be going back to work. I remember you asked me how long it was going to take me. And my honest answer was, well, I don't know. I'm dyslexic. So it's going to take as long as it takes.
Interesting. So you like, oh, look, people don't know, but it's 8 p.m. at the moment. No, actually, no, it's 10 past 8 at the moment,
Yeah.
p.m. And so we were debating, shall we do this? Shall we do this? And we agreed to do it. I feel guilty. I honestly do. I feel so bad because
No.
although we debated, I've got that kind of guilt factor on me. But you said you'd do it, and I appreciate that so much. And I've been looking forward to this one in particular because I'm really all about people just bearing, in a sense, bearing all about themselves
Yeah, yeah.
as an encouragement for others.
Mm.
For yourself, you mentioned to me that you are dyslexic, and I was like, "Would you talk about it?" You said yes. Initial thoughts, I'm going to be honest with you,
Yeah, yeah.
it's quite stereotypical. It may be stereotypical, judgmental, but I think you can take it. And that is, can I, if we were flying a plane
Yeah, yeah.
and the captain said he's dyslexic, how comfortable would I feel?
Yeah.
If you're a social worker and you have that, how much of a disability of that is it? And can I trust you? And I'm approaching this I'm actually looking at the stereotypes and I'm saying, Elizabeth, help me undo them.
Yeah, yeah.
How can you be dyslexic
Mm-hmm.
and a social worker at the
Yeah.
same time? And what is your experience? You could tell us where it began,
Yeah.
wherever you want to start with that.
Yeah. So I guess it's to you've got to understand in terms of the stereotype for dyslexia, is that you're thick, that you're stupid. That is the general, like people think, does that mean that you can't read? Does that mean that you can't write? Like, does it mean that you can like and then that's all they understand about dyslexia. So I understand that's the perception of dyslexia. When I wasn't diagnosed with dyslexia until I was in university. My English teacher in secondary school said, I think you're dyslexic. And then he followed it up with, I kid you not, but you'll be okay because you're smart.
Okay.
And then that was it. No help, nothing, just carry on my memory aid. And so I just carried on. I was like, okay, well, then, it's kind of 16. You don't know. One, I didn't really understand what dyslexia was. Although I would say the word dyslexia and the spelling is a joke for people who are dyslexic. Like, it's really hard to spell all the time. Every dyslexic I've ever met is like, why have they chosen this word to describe us and for it to spell the way it is? But basically, anyway, like so I didn't know anything about it. And for me, I guess because mine, in some ways it's severe, in some ways it isn't. But if by the time I was diagnosed, I was 18, so it meant that I'd already put in coping mechanisms to kind of compensate for my additional need. So it means that, like, I like to be super organized, because if I can find things and I can put things together, then I don't have to kind of worry about that. It means that I'm incredibly detailed. Which
You're saying that that's what dyslexia makes you, or that's how you chose to cope.
I think it's a bit of both. I think dyslexia is about having a creative mind. It just means that your brain works differently, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, so they think you're not neurotypical. Your brain works differently, and that's automatically a bad thing. But there are many people who have done many things in life who are dyslexic, like in terms of inventions and things like that. So it just means that your brain works differently, and that's okay. And I think for me, even though the stereotype was that, okay, it means you're thick, it means you're stupid, I think I was protected from that a little bit, because the teacher who kind of recognized it then called me smart immediately and then didn't offer any help. So I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't offer someone help, but because I was diagnosed quite late, it meant that I had to have coping mechanisms. I had to find a way, because I didn't know there was anything. Like, it's always been my brain. My brain has always worked like this. So
Okay, So tell me, give me some of the more symptomatic aspects of it. Like, what does
Okay. So
dyslexia
for,
look like for you?
so for me, because
Yeah.
it's different for everyone. So for me, my spelling isn't great. My spelling's poor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it takes me longer to read information.
Right.
So if you send me something, it takes me longer to read it. When I was
Yeah.
growing up, I needed a different background, so a different overlay. So I would have like a blue overlay that I'd put on top of my work to help the words stand out.
Yeah.
If I'm reading things or if I'm proofreading my own work, sometimes that's difficult because I will add or take out words and not realize that I'm doing it. And that's the same with reading. So when I read something, um, it's never been an issue where it means that I have missed out information, but it means that I might structure the sentence differently. So an
What
example,
in a
like a
poorly
paragraph.
grammatical layout? You're
Yeah, so it might be like, for an example, um, I was in the car. So and then it would be like something like I was in the car and I saw this. I saw this whilst I was in the car. So it means exactly the same thing, but it is slightly different.
right.
So it's just about watching those things as a social worker. So it means that I tend to reread things a couple of times.
That's double work.
Reread?
It's double the work.
Oh,
Like
it's double the
when
work.
you're writing your assessments or reading reports or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
you're having to go over it more than once, which can be, I
yeah.
guess, tiring. I don't know.
So yeah, so well, I'll get on to being tired. So I reread things more than so I proofread things, I reread things. But you can get software nowadays that so as you type, it reads it out to you, and that
Oh,
picks up any of the mistakes. So then
right.
that means that you're not using that much time. I think it's double work, but I've never known anything differently.
Right. Right.
Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
And for me, like I want to put as much detail in as possible, and I want to get it right because that child deserves to have it right.
Mm,
So I just do it. It
hmm.
yeah. But I think in terms of kind of answering your question, as in like, how can I trust you to be a social worker?
Sorry to ask you like that, but I
No,
thought
no, no. I hear it. I hear it.
you get
Like,
me. Yeah.
yeah, like you can trust me as much as someone who is self-aware, which you need to be as a social worker. You need to understand what you bring into that situation. A social worker needs to have passion, and a social worker needs to know the areas of development. Those are all things that I have as someone who is dyslexic personally. Some people, they don't care about this dyslexia. They go on and they say it doesn't affect them. I can't
Mm,
say that about my dyslexia. I'm aware of how it impacts me. And
mm,
so I make sure that those things are covered. Also, in terms of detail and memory,
yeah.
I don't know if it's the same for every dyslexic,
Mm,
but like my memory it is just very, very good. I've almost got a photographic memory when I go into and see houses, and when I'm going in to talk about the condition of the house, or there was this and there was that. Like I can put myself through that, and I'll detail all of it. So I'll write all of
mm,
it. So you'll have a very detailed case note or a very detailed assessment. Yes, it might take me longer to get there, and therefore it means that I might accrue more toil because I'm working longer. Because I'm not the kind of person that's saying, okay, well, I'm dyslexic, so I'm just going to quickly do it, and then you get what you get. Like it matters what I write down. That child can come and request their details at any time to see their files. So why wouldn't I take the time to write down what's in my mind, what I can remember, why it's concerning, why it's not concerning,
right.
what's positive.
Mm,
And I think some people, so my dyslexia, I'm quite creative. I'm quite, I find it easy to communicate with people. And those are all different strengths in terms
mhm.
of being dyslexic. So actually, do you need to be a communicator to be a good social worker?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I can do that quite easily. And that probably is because of my dyslexia, and actually being able to understand why, like, okay, so I understand that someone says something, I might need to hear it twice, in the sense of like numbers is probably where it trips me up the biggest, like the most. So if I phone you up, Curtis, and I can't get hold of you, I need to leave my number. I'll say my number twice. I say my number twice so that if you need to go back and hear in the digits, you don't have to listen to the whole voicemail again. Because when people say numbers, I can't always find it in my brain. Does that make sense? No.
No, it is making sense. I'm just absorbing this
Yeah.
experience. I'm trying to externalize and put
Yeah.
myself in your experience.
So, for instance, as a social worker, loads of people have my number and loads of people call me and they'll say, oh, hey, Elizabeth, haven't got hold of you. This is my number. And they'll just roll up a number. And then they'll say, bye. I can't pick up that number straight away. I can't, I don't know why I cannot do it. So if there's
Okay. I can't either.
but I literally cannot find the numbers. Like I can hear it, but I can't find the numbers in my head to write it down.
Okay.
And sometimes with my numbers,
So hold on. If you're listening to a message that says 07852 441 441, did I say that too fast?
you said it too fast. And also sometimes the digits get I don't know how to explain it. So when I hear a number, I see a number in my head, but sometimes I don't always see the right number. So I have to look for, I literally have to look for me. I have to look for it. And so if you say something like, I don't know, maybe like 5, I might look like for an 8 in my head, because the 5 and the 8 can be a bit similar sometimes. It's kind
So
of
you're
like,
saying, so sometimes you're getting the numbers muddled up.
yeah.
I might say 5, but you picture an 8.
So if I say, hey, Curtis, I can't get hold of you. This is my number. I will say my number again, because I know that I have a need. And therefore if you're saying you can't pick it up, then I've made your life easier, because you've not got to listen to the whole voice note again, the voicemail. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or
I'm
like,
taking a note of what you're saying.
so I think because I'm dyslexic, I am more able to understand that people have, or I am familiar with the idea that people's needs are different to mine. And therefore, when working with parents or working with children or working with foster carers, I use that as a strength to come alongside them and get them to the point where I need them to be as a social worker, or at least demonstrate that they can't get there, and therefore we need to do another intervention.
So you're more ready than, I could say most, I don't know, but I'm going to say anyway, you're more ready than most because you are in that experience of disadvantage. And
Yeah.
so you will naturally be in a position to, we're going to advocate from the get-go.
Yeah.
So in a sense, that could be seen as a superpower, even though it would be seen, as many as has been seen in the past before, as a disability.
Yeah. I think time telling. So as a social worker, it's so easy to be late because we've always got things to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Say,
time.
what's wrong with that? That's normal.
But so like telling the time can be quite difficult sometimes, because again, it's the numbers thing. So like often they'll say, oh, when's your visit? And I'll say, or they say, when's the time or when's the visit? And I'll say maybe 4 o'clock. But because I've read it as like 1400, I've said 4 o'clock, but actually it's 2 o'clock. So it's about making sure that I'm writing things in a way that I understand. So
okay. Personal question.
Yeah.
Reading an analog clock.
Yeah.
Can you read one?
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess it's the use of that time or the recollection of the time.
It's just something I need to concentrate on. When I was in year 6, you know, when you did your SACs, I just missed out all the questions to do with clocks. I can now tell the time, but like at the time, like I just couldn't do it. I struggled, and I was like, okay, this is something I'm not good at. Well, I'm going to use most of my time on things I'm good at because it's an exam, and that makes sense. But so I found ways to get round things.
So then I'm going to ask an ignorant question, and I'm asking these ignorant questions for a good reason, because I'm about addressing stereotypes. So I appreciate your bravery again. Why don't you this is surely a case of just go to reading classes.
Yeah.
Get a tutor, What would you say to that to deal with it? Because maybe you could just strengthen yourself in that area.
So I think part of it is strengthening. So I never used to read outside of kind of academics when I was growing up, but I now read. So that's helped. I now also like I will Siri types half of my assessments for me because I'll be typing and I'll say Siri, how do you spell? Seriously, I'm like
Ah,
Siri,
yeah,
how do
yeah,
you spell? And I'm like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, or I Google. And sometimes Microsoft is no help at all because Microsoft's just like, well, you're way off, so I can't help with that. So I Google it because that helps as well. I have like software, read and write, so I am strengthening things. But the fact that my brain is wired differently means that that's just the way it works. So it's about finding a way to navigate through that and doing my job, which
I mean, I mean, I don't know if it's a. I'm very mindful about how I might come across
no, it's fine. Go for it.
because because I don't want to be condescending, but things that would naturally be a compliment. Sometimes I think, oh, how's that going to sound? But
Mm,
it would be fair to say that your English teacher was right because I would never have guessed
mm,
that you were dyslexic unless you told me.
yeah.
Partly because your conduct of language is excellent. It's better than mine by far. I don't know if I'm dyslexic, but you're making me think, oh, it's like you've put some stuff on me now. Like, actually, I struggle with that as well. So what's
Mm,
going on, Curtis? But interesting. I guess some of us might well be.
yeah, yeah.
Is this a? And I want to bring this up real quick, and maybe you know or don't. But are we using Europeanized standards to understand this, or is this? Like for example, IQ tests are
Mm,
Europeanized standards, so they're not really accurate as to someone's intelligence
yeah.
necessarily. But how would you say that, when you're kind of being assessed about dyslexia, do you think it's
So I
yeah.
I don't. So I got like I said, I got assessed when I was in university. So I was about 18. Um, the assessments are hours long. They're really long. And actually quite tiring because it's trying to work out how you think. Dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence at all. It's got nothing to do with your IQ.
Mm,
But there's a stereotype that it's got everything to do with your IQ. So I think that's the first thing.
mm,
All of my sisters, so I've got two sisters, were all dyslexic.
mm,
My mum's dyslexic. My mum's also a social worker. My sister's got a master's in biomedical science. And my
wicked.
other sister studied law and music. Um, so
There you
dyslexia,
go.
it's just the way your brain works.
Right.
Like if I was colorblind, or I mean, I've got a colleague also who's legally blind, but it doesn't mean that you can't social work. It means that you may have um, circumstances that you need to overcome and you need to
Yeah.
work in a different way.
Mm,
But it doesn't mean that you can't social work. And I think actually because I know that I need to apply myself, I need to make sure that I'm writing partly because I'm conscientious, but also because I understand that I'm dyslexic and I want to put details in my case notes, in my assessments. Um, it means that I focus more on it,
mm.
which is hard to do in social work, even though we do so much paperwork.
Do you know what?
But equally, I love writing. Like I love writing. I don't know why. I enjoyed writing my dissertation, and I'm dyslexic. Like it was fun. I know.
Yeah, I'm getting my head around it. For those of you who are just going to listen to the podcast, there's a silence over here because I'm just really processing how much I didn't know and processing what you're giving me.
Yeah.
And if anything, we have to have hope that almost anyone can do this.
Hmm.
There shouldn't be that many. You exist. I've made a quick note. You have, and you probably wouldn't know it, but you have a higher level of resilience because you're starting because we're such an academic as well as practical vocation.
Yeah.
You're having to, in a sense, redo your work when you've done your work.
Yeah.
you're putting in more. You're extremely resilient and probably overworked.
So okay, so you talked about being tired, like it sounds like it's more work, so it's tiring. Um, so when I'm tired, my dyslexia is worse because my brain is tired. So there comes a cut-off point that I'm learning. Actually, am I too tired to do this right now? Or so sometimes like I'll write case notes, but I won't finalize them. I don't know if everyone has that on their systems, but basically it's you can save a case note and then you can finalize it, which means that you can't edit it. So sometimes I write things, I'm like, okay, my brain's just not in a place where it can go back. It can kind of read through that and understand it properly in the way it needs to. So I'll come back to it. Yeah.
Have you had to make, this is the last question I have on this topic. Have you had
Yeah.
to make any disclosures, and has it kind of impeded you from getting employment?
No. I've always disclosed. So I always disclose it because it's not something. So so it's just part of my identity, isn't it? It's part of who I am. So I'm a black woman. I have dyslexia. I'm a social worker. These are all different things that are part of my identity. None of which I'm ashamed of. Legally, they can't. They can't use that against me. They're supposed to support me. Disability Act, you know. And like I'm a good social worker, and I had evidence to prove that. I used to write, and I never thought that I would do it. I used to write SGO assessments. I did that for 3.5 years. So SGO assessments, so special guardianship assessments, is where basically a child's been removed and you want to place them with someone who knows them, like a connected person assessment. So my assessments every 3 months were in excess of 50,000 words. And I would be doing assessments and writing assessments. And my manager would then, we got a new service manager, and she was feeling a bit overwhelmed. So she sent some of her work. She sent some of the stuff that she needed to quality assure to the service manager. She said to me, I send your stuff because I know it's good and it's not going to be an issue.
Interesting.
Yes, it takes me a little bit longer, but then that might be because I'm writing more.
And writing more because?
I think I'm probably writing more because that's partly to do with the person I am, partly to do with being conscientious, partly to do with my passion for being social work, and partly because if I'm making a decision, I want to take the reader through everything as to why that's my conclusion, that's my recommendation. Because one, the courts need to see it.
Yeah.
Two, the prospective special guardian is going to see it, and actually that child might see it as to why you've decided that I can't live there or why I can live there. So just in terms of like famous dyslexics, so like Albert Einstein, Jim Carrey, Walt Disney, Tom Cruise, like Orlando Bloom, there's loads, even Richard Branson, these people are dyslexic. So it's not about intelligence. If anything, it brings something. Diversity has always been positive in any way or shape or form. And dyslexia is part of that.
It sounds like the world is shaped around a particular type of maybe learning style. And I guess we're slowly embracing difference as a strength, as opposed to a weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and I'm learning about that for me because I don't know, maybe I say this because I'm a social worker, but my assessment of dyslexia was done in university, and it was about how to help and support me to achieve a degree. My argument to that is then, shouldn't there be assessments for when you're in work so it can support you entirely? Because it's slightly different. Me studying and writing for a degree is different from social working.
This is an interesting topic for me.
So yeah, I can work it out, and that's great. But there are people who maybe can't work it out completely themselves, or might need a little bit some more support. And that's different to access of works assessment that the government do, because they're looking about kind of like, what's it called? They're saying, oh, what kind of product or what kind of software can we put to support you? Really, what you need to be doing is empowering people to understand their disability. because once you do that, then it's that, then they can take that anywhere.
And then they can know what to ask for.
Know what to ask for. On a funny topic, before we finish with dyslexia, so I worked for an organisation. I asked for specific software. They kindly gave. They gave it to me, and then you had to renew it every year. So then someone from the IT service sent me an email saying, "Do I still need it, or has anything changed?"
Oh, because you've
So we
it's cured. You've had it for a year. You should be cured by now. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, he was like, "Do you still need it? Has anything changed?" And I was like, respectfully,
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because it's just awareness, isn't it? This is awareness, isn't it?
But I love the way my brain works.
Yeah. You've
Yeah.
embraced that now. You just know how it works. You've seen the strengths, you've seen the weaknesses, and you just embrace them both.
Yeah.
I got more from this than I planned.
Okay.
I mean, we can slide on to the second topic of interest for you, which is looking at identity. Because you've embraced your strengths and weaknesses. Very briefly, how do you? And I ask you about how you identify. It's the broader issue, not necessarily just gender. But if I asked you straight now, how do you identify? What your answer would be?
So I would say I identify as a Black woman but I have Nigerian heritage, but it's heritage, not culture. So it's very different for me. I'll get into that a bit later. I'm a Christian. I'm a social worker. It's part of my identity. It's on my Instagram. No one asked, but it's still there. So clearly it's important. Those are probably the 3-4 main things about my identity.
Can we say what you do now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you work here as doing fostering assessments.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I've moved from that team actually. So I'm still in the fostering team, but I've stopped doing SGO assessments, and I'm just working with foster carers on a long-term basis and supporting them with their placements and all the difficulties that causes, which you'd be surprised.
No, you can't surprise me.
I've got one for you.
Okay. So, okay. I think we're going to touch on it. I'm guessing. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go. All right. So, I'm trying to read your mind now, which is one of my superpowers.
Okay.
The downside is that I think too much.
Yeah.
So I'm really always reading people. I never stop, and it can be taxing. But that's another superpower. We'll talk about another day. And so one of the interesting dilemmas, situations that you might find in supporting young people is something around transracial or transcultural placements.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I think, do you know what? I think part of it stems out of like I kind of alluded to before I even get into that. Like I said, I'm a Black woman.
Yeah.
Both my parents are Nigerian. I grew up with the food, understand the language, speak the language a little bit, but it was never really part of my something. It wasn't something I assumed as my own identity. Like I said, it was always my heritage and my culture. So I've always found like a really funny thing. Like I've just tried to understand myself a bit better and what's important to me and what makes me who I am, not just because people say that's who you are. And also I grew up in a very white dominant place. That's just where my parents raised me. I then moved to another place that is just as white British dominant. That's just the demographics out there. So I think just in terms of identity, it's always been something that's been very interesting to me. Like even little things like, women can wear their hair however they want to wear their hair. But when I was growing up, I was very, very young. My mum relaxed my hair. I didn't know my natural hair until maybe 2.5 years ago. That was a lot for my identity, just understanding my natural hair.
2.5 years ago?
Yeah. So I did the big chop. I know this is a side issue, but I did the big chop and
this is part of the topic. This is it. Yeah.
just understanding my natural hair um, helped me understand my identity in a way that I was not expecting at all.
Very quickly, why did you make that decision? And I say, and I ask, it's a very important question, I think, for the way I know it, black women.
Yeah.
Black is a broad term. Just always want to make that clear. But everybody makes any black woman who makes that decision, it's a big decision.
Yeah.
So what informs that?
So I've always loved my hair. So I would relax my hair every 6 weeks. I would literally go to the hairdressers every 2 weeks to have it treated. So I spent a lot of money on my hair, and I still do, just in different ways. But like I was dedicated and diligent with my hair. And then I got glandular fever. Have you heard of glandular fever before?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. So basically, it's just like your immune system just crashes. Like you can catch it, and I call it from looking after my sister. And it affects everyone's body differently. There's research to suggest that it affects your body differently, and trauma's got to do something with that. But we won't even get into that anyway. So it basically it stopped me working full time. I had to go down to. I was off sick for 3 months. Then I had to go part time, and it nearly turned into a chronic fatigue.
Yep.
It was that bad.
Yeah.
So in all of that, my hair just was breaking. Like I was just sick and it was breaking, and I couldn't. We trimmed it. We did all steaming, treatment, all sorts of things. Stretched out, relaxed. Like we did everything.
Trying to treat it externally. It's an external thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't working, and just having my hair fall out every time I was brushing it or combing it, really, or even finger combing it, was just, I would cry.
Yeah, of course.
I was so distressed. So I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And so I just went to the hairdresser and said, just take it all off.
Yeah.
It's a big chop.
Yeah.
So I did that, and growing up, my hair's quite thick. I mean, it doesn't look thick now because I've blow dried it, but generally I don't. And my mum would be like, your hair's hard, your hair's thick. Like it was hard to, manage. So let's just put chemical on it because that's what we do.
This is a deep topic for me. Sorry, I cut you.
It's a deep
topic because I think that we're moving more into it now, especially since Black Panther came out. But we're moving more into it now. But this is going to fit nicely into this whole identity thing. So I'm speaking for you, but it's a big topic for me for people to embrace who they really are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I learned to love my 4C hair. I learned what products worked for it, what products didn't. Had some funny things I tried to do with my hair, like put banana in it because I tried to do a banana conditioner, and then I spent 4 hours trying to get the rest of the banana out. Like, but I remember feeling so nervous because I've always had a difficult relationship with my hair. Because my parents relaxed my hair so young, actually, they gave me jerry curls. They gave me Michael Jackson jerry curls.
Jerry curls?
Yes.
Man, I didn't think that still existed.
Well, I mean, when I was 5. I'm 31 now, so.
Jerry curls back then, okay.
Yeah, and then it was breaking. And so they cut my hair. My parents cut it all off, and I went to a new school, and a child put their hand up, and they said, "Miss, is she a boy?" And so cutting my hair was a big thing, but it meant that I learned more about my identity. That's the point. I learned more about who I am. I learned that our hair is beautiful, even if you don't see it on TV. I mean, now you do, but it was different when I was growing up, and women can wear their hair however they want. It's absolutely their choice. But for me, it meant that I understood and loved myself more, and it was a journey. And what was even more ironic in that was that it was my now husband. I mean, he's my now husband now, but at the time he was just my partner, and it was my wife partner who was helping me embrace my hair. All of this to say, I'm really passionate about identity and the different forms. I think that identity means different things to different people. And just because, like, for instance, like I said, I see Nigerian Yoruba culture as my heritage, not my own personal culture. My
Yeah.
sisters are more in touch with it, and they consider it to be their culture.
Yeah.
And neither of that, I'm not wrong, and they're not wrong. That's their identity, and we ought to respect children. We ought to support children to do that. Children who are looked after, children who we have said their parents are not deemed fit enough to care for them, and they can't provide them with the basic care that they need. So we have removed them. They've reached significant harm. So we've taken them out. We
Hold on,
then,
hold on. You're going too fast now. You're
sorry,
going too
I
fast
get
now.
excited. Sorry.
This, this is it. This is it. Okay. A child is what you're saying. A child is placed in or is it an assessment stage? What are you looking at now?
So I'm looking at when we remove the child, when a child has become looked after.
Right.
So we as the local authority have said that parent is not meeting that child's need, that child is at risk or likely to receive significant harm, that child needs to be removed. We've gone through PLO. The courts have said it's a care order. Or even if it is just an ICO, if they're interim care order, if we've removed that child and that child is no longer with their parents, and they're now in foster care in the care system, as people will say, then we have a duty to make sure that not only are we supporting them to repair from the trauma that they've experienced, but that we are meeting their needs holistically. And that includes their identity. And so we cannot do that if we don't educate our foster carers, but more to the point, we don't educate ourselves as social workers.
Can I
So
throw something in? I
go.
want to throw something in here. Having just, I work in a borough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm changing boroughs this week, but I work in a borough
Oh,
that we have a lot of, you call it minority, black children. It's a wide scope of black. Because of the child's, call it record,
yeah.
the list of risks and safeguarding issues and the history, foster carers are not interested.
Yeah.
So we go to the placements team, say, please put out a request for a placement.
IFA? Are you looking for an IFA, like an independent fostering agency?
Well, they put it out to,
Yeah.
and then residential placements as well. And the only one that comes up is in Wales or Scotland. The ones that always come up first are Wales and Scotland. These are London kids,
Yeah.
and a lot of the time they're going to be of minority ethnicity, so to speak, if I can say that term. So I recently just put a child somewhere quite far, and I haven't appropriated their culture or their cultural needs,
Okay.
which is something that you're talking about now
Yeah.
that can be easily missed. So when they go to that place, if they have something that they can hold on to, which is a part of their identity,
Yeah.
they probably don't even recognize as a part of their identity until it's lost.
Yeah.
Then they are then further, much more so in a new world. Even if it was 100 miles away, it's still a new world. Whereas we've had black girls saying, where I need hair products.
Yeah.
And I've heard of, over the years, disputes in the homes where they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. Where can
Yeah.
we find this stuff? Sorry, I'm going to let you take it from here, but this is something that you're waking up inside me
Yeah.
to reinforce my practice. Go ahead. Sorry.
So my thing is that, like, I just feel that, I'm going to say it with my chest because I fully believe it.
Come on.
If we don't do it, it's a disservice to those children.
You say it. Yeah.
That's the reality. And whilst I'm not suggesting that it means a placement breakdown, I don't see how we're holistically meeting that child's needs. So it is, yes, okay, fair enough. Sometimes it is about hair products. It's about skin, and the products they need for their skin.
Yeah.
But it's also about literature. It's also about representation. It's also about music. It's also about finding ways to link them into their community. And it's important. And if we don't support them to do that, then we're not supporting them to become adults, and we're not doing the whole five, every child matters, 5 outcomes. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But I also want to say that in terms of inclusivity, like it's just as important for any foster carer, even if they're matched with a child who is the same ethnicity as them, to understand the importance of diversity and to teach the children in their care that as well. So I'm not just advocating for little black girls to have black dolls that look like them. No, every child should have a black doll that every child should have a doll that has a disability, a hidden one, or like we need to be looking at difference and diversity, and we need to be taking proper acknowledgement of it, because for far too long it's not really been what we've been doing, and so we've been failing children. Like an example of this is, I came back to the borough that I now work for, who I used to work for before. Met some foster carers. They're white, and the child that they've been caring for is mixed race. And they've been caring for that child for 6 years. That child then came to school a couple of days later, maybe a month later, made an allegation that they were using and this is extreme, but this is not, they were using the N-word.
Who was using it? The carers?
Yeah. But the foster carers weren't. They had another child who was using it, and they were repeating the word.
Right.
And so the mixed race child, let's call him Jack, was saying, you can't use that word. And they were like, no. As long as we're not saying it to a black person, then it's not then it's not an issue.
The listeners cannot see my face right now, but no. Did I hear you right?
You heard me right, and you said I couldn't surprise you.
It's 2022. What are you talking about?
Right. And anyway, so it gets worse. So then this child comes, and then so this child is standing up for himself, as he should, and he's saying, you can't use that word. It doesn't matter if you're using it you're telling another child they shouldn't use it. You cannot use that word. It's offensive. And so the female carer felt that she was in the right, and therefore the child alleges that that she continued to say the word over and over again. So I hear about this. It's my job to go and explore it. It's my job to go sort it out. Okay, cool. So I'm happy to do that. My manager checks in on me. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? Because my manager's white. Just for the listeners who don't know. Well, I've said I'm black, so everyone knows now. So, and I'm like, yeah, I not only am I passionate about it, I don't want to be the only other black person in that child's life and then just leave because I can, when he's had to be subjected to it. What does that tell that child?
Yeah.
So anyway, I go and discuss it. Curtis, it does not go well.
Okay.
She says, bless her white fragility comes out in all its glory.
Tears?
No, she got angry. She said, I need to be careful. She slammed her hand on a table. She walked away, told me I need to go and find different placement for all these children, but she's not doing it anymore.
Okay.
And all that time I'm just, and I just said, look, the elephant in the room is that I'm black, right? So I don't start there, and I don't want them to think I'm taking it personally, because I'm really not, at least not at that time. So I say, right? So I said, society as a whole has decided that word's offensive. Like, this isn't something that I decided. Society as a whole has decided that word's offensive. Oh, but Elizabeth this. Oh, but Elizabeth that. Society as a whole has decided that this word is offensive. And I have to say that a couple of times. Still not getting it. then they're then saying that I need to have made sure that foster carers have this training because they've never been aware of that. Yeah, there are some greater issues there. I understand. The mail carrier is just like, well, if this is an envelope, why can't I call it an envelope?
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just like, so anyway, we unpack it, we explore it. They're angry, they're shouting, and I say, well, I'm going to leave. I've told you what this child's alleged. I've raised the concern. I've tried to discuss it with you. Obviously, you're a bit frustrated. It can tell we're all feeling a bit heated at the moment. So we're just having circular conversations. I'm going to go. I'm going to call you tomorrow, and we can address it. Needless to say, it doesn't go very well. They're still of the opinion that I think they were very heated when they said it. So they were talking about wanting to basically have the children taken out of their care, and if that's how, and that I had accused them of being racist. And I said it's a racial slur. I didn't call you racist because, frankly, if I'm trying to talk to white people about racism, I don't call them racist because that gets their back up, and I'm generally trying to have a conversation. And then I phoned the social worker, the children's social worker, and I'm just like, look, these are the issues, these are the concerns. I said, now I'm concerned because of their response. I'm concerned because George Floyd was murdered and that boy was in that house. How did they support him? Simple. Also, the Globe decided to have a racial awakening. Where were they when that took place? That I've only seen that child on it was a new case. I've only ever seen that child on one other occasion. That child didn't go to school that day, so I couldn't tell the condition of his hair. Because obviously, if you're not at home, sometimes kids don't do their hair. I might just leave my hair in plaits or wear my bonnet. So I'm expecting that. But his hair's never been kept, as far as I'm concerned. That's what everyone's telling me. You're telling me. I don't know. I said to the children's social worker, well, what do they do? How do they meet his needs? Does he cream his skin? Like, how does he brush his hair? Oh, and then the social worker said, oh, I don't know. I just know that Afro hair is difficult to manage. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about we're doing a disservice to our children. And so I talk about it. I thankfully service manager.
Man.
You're right. You okay? You're right. But I came home. Honestly, I talk about it now, but I came home. No, do you know what? I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't even get home. I got in my car and I cried. I cried for that little boy. Actually, he's 14, but he's been there for 6.5 years.
So he must have gone through a lot of hell,
right?
That he doesn't even realize he went through.
But so we've suggested him to that. We've done that. So, like the council that I work with, they've asked me. They had asked me anyway, but I'm doing like an EDI, Equality, Diversity, Inclusion project. That I'm basically writing a document that looks at these things and basically almost like a crib sheet of how to support children who, if you're in a transcultural placement. But it's not just about ethnicity; it's also about disability, which we did touch on, gender, and for instance, most of our understanding about autism is based on males, and so you will find that most women who are on the autistic spectrum are diagnosed as adults because we don't understand it when they're girls and they're younger. We're also talking about sexuality, so I'm working with people and doing a lot of the research myself to basically put this document together so that we can start treating these children with respect, so that we can support them to grow. Because we're going to heal from trauma and repair all the relationships, but I don't know who I am. And every child has the right to be so frustrated when they realize, because they will realize, the same way I realized that my mum shouldn't have relaxed my hair at 5. It's the same way that child's going to be like, oh, okay, so I had social workers, I had an IRO, had a foster carer, and, my skin's ashy and I don't know what hyperpigmentation is. And I don't understand that my hair might mean that I have, more likely keloids or like there's so many things, or I don't understand what this religion means, and I wanted to explore it a bit more, and that's the religion my parents had, but then I was removed, and so no one really thought about it because I was 5 at the time. Like, we've got to do better.
What,
So
what,
that's my passion.
this sounds like an obvious question.
Yeah.
I, I wouldn't like to answer it in an obvious way.
Hmm.
But I'd rather ask you to kind of reflect on it before you answer it. Like, what happens when we don't recognize heritage enough, culture enough, when supporting our children? What might be the default? What happens when we don't?
Do you know? Um, there's so many ways you could answer that, and there's so many ways that are quite obvious. But the best thing that comes to mind is, like, if you, it's kind of like an analogy. If, like, everyone knows Lego, most children play with Lego. If you built a block wall, a brick wall, but you left out some of the blocks, that's what we're doing to our kids. We're missing bits out that are important to them, that should be there.
Right.
And we're just telling them to go on, so they don't understand who they are, don't know who they are. And then they will eventually need to go on that journey. So that means that we're delaying them for all the things that they should have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
their parents aren't fit. Don't get me wrong, children need to be removed. That's just the world we live in as social workers. Not saying that we should keep children in the care of their parents. And I'm not even saying that we should only place children in culturally matched placements, because we don't, like, the council I work with, we don't have that option.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we need to support them. So we need to support our workers, our social workers, our foster carers. We need to support everyone to help that child navigate through identity. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. And that's why I'm talking about, like, my sisters and I both see our heritage and the Yoruba culture, Nigerian culture differently in our lives. But
Yeah.
we've all been able to explore that.
Mm.
And that child will then make a decision as to what's important to them. But to deny them, we're just taking bricks from their wall.
You answered that in a way I didn't expect. I needed to hear it like that. It's very easy to tick that box in an assessment.
Mm.
I've looked at the family, I've looked at the child, but to not only mention, as we often do, this child is of a, I don't know, Ghanaian heritage, Romani Gypsy heritage, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
And that's where it matters.
And also, not only what does that mean, but what does that mean
Mm.
to that child specifically?
Ah,
And
fair
what
point.
may it mean to that child in the future?
Mm. Mm.
So I've got a child who is mixed heritage. She is Thai and white British heritage. I was with her today and we were talking about that and what that looks like for her. And I'm always having conversations about, like, it's not like, as social workers we write assessments, but we're also always assessing.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't be any different for a child's cultural needs.
That's an interesting mix in that at sight, they may appear to be mostly white, which means that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, interesting you said that. She looks more Thai than white British.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you made that assumption. So, but equally, um, how I identify is how I identify. So I might look mostly white. That doesn't mean that I don't have a different heritage.
That's
I've got
right.
another child in my caseload she is white British, black. And I say black because we don't know where dad's from. Mum didn't want to disclose who the dad was. And Italian. And it's about it's about letting her have exposure to all of the different cultures and letting her choose what bit matters to her and when. And it might matter more when she's younger or a certain age, and her hair's always telling because her hair has got there's evidence that she has black heritage. So it's not kind of your straight kind of European hair. So she may identify as black in respect to that. but needs certain hair products. But equally, her mum was white. So when one of the social workers asked her, "Well, how do you feel like living with a white family?" That's just as off as well, because her mum was white. She lived with her mum. It's her mum's, it's her mum's sister who's caring for her because it's connected persons, so they're white. So it's about not just ticking the boxes or just saying, okay, yeah, they're mixed heritage or they're this. It's about what does that mean for that child, and how can I make sure that those needs are being met, or where necessary, where can I challenge that?
You know what you sound like? You sound like you got part 2 in you.
Not tonight. I need to go and do my work.
Yeah, another day, of course, but you sound like you have part 2, and you're like, this is diversity is one of the topics of the hour, I guess, in today's society, and I think that your take on it is needed, because a lot of time, I guess, social workers, as in our early stages, because this channel was already originally set up for students.
Oh, okay.
And then it's kind of grown into something more, and we learn to accrue information because it's easy to go to a family and ask them lots of questions. But what do you do with that information? And so when we're looking at identity, transracial stroke transculturalism, what do we do with the knowledge that someone is who they are? How can we explore that and contextualize it and meet needs through it, and help them to solidify and build their identity through it is really where the skills and experience are. That's where the money is. I just want to say one more thing, actually. You've got a great smile. It was the first thing, when we clicked live, you were there with the smile, and it's radiant. So I appreciate your time and your expertise tonight. And I know you're off to work now.
Yeah, but on the sofa, so it's fine.
Working from home is so hard, isn't it?
I love it.
You like it, yeah?
Yeah,
I don't mind.
yeah.
In fact, I actually don't generally. I like the flexibility, but
Boundaries.
the kitchen table. I've got a nice kitchen table, and it became, like I said, no, I'm going to work. I don't want it to be a place I hate.
Yeah.
Dinner and laptop. No, it's like, oh, listen. It's like after doing it for 2 years, it's like no. Over the last 2 months, I've been like, no, I'm going to the office 2-3 days a week.
Really?
Because it's taking its toll now, and sitting on the chair, it's not easy. But yeah, working on the couch is a little bit different. I don't often do that. My armrest is a bit high.
I got mixed up, so I sit on the sofa with my lap tray, put my laptop on top, and then just type
Whilst you're watching Netflix.
whilst I'm having something in the background. I mean, it's 9 o'clock, so I'm going to work like that.
Yeah.
Gets the job done. But
Lovely. Thanks for your time. Guys, this was Elizabeth. She's given us a lot of insight. Again, please subscribe to the channel. Please share this. This was a really powerful session on understanding. And I think we're just beginning to understand what diversity is. And I guess when we spoke about dyslexia, that's a part of the issue of diversity and identity, what it means. Please share this, and I'm going to send some clips out. Guys, thank you for your time. Elizabeth, I want to thank you again.
No worries.
And we're going to end the show right here. Take care, guys.